And then you look at like if you have economic bottom and the market or also like
so you have to apply different assuming we have some
I mean, so like so I will do the worst case thing, kind of worst case scenario,
right.
And then if that works out great, then anyone who wants it at zero cost, everything works great there. I don't actually need that much more work. This is some economic modeling.
You basically just need people to each other.
Behavioral modeling is fine. There's an economic stuff that needs to be prevailing rates of interest. Alternatives in the greater economy.
Thank you. I hope you all had a good lunch. You're all getting a lot better behaved to return to your seats. The show workshop's almost over.
Classical condition.
Yeah. So a couple of things before we launch into the post-lunch session. As I mentioned in the email previously, I'd really like to get some concrete statements that people mostly agree with. I think we came to some good consensus during the sessions over the last 3 days. And I've attempted to kickstart this with the Lumio. I've put up some statements that I think we mostly agree with. Please, whenever you can, join them and either agree or disagree and state why. And if we get sufficient consensus on this, then I'm going to include these as things we agreed on in the workshop and any post-summary wrap up and so on. The link for this Lumio is bit.ly/ENS-workshop, sorry, ENS-Lumio. Secondly, somebody pointed out to me immediately after the last session, one thing we didn't cover in the implementation considerations is reverse resolution. So I'm not going to try and start a big discussion about it, but I just wanted to point it out as a significant concern. If your client does reverse resolution, then it should also forward resolve the result and check that it actually maps. Because otherwise it's too easy for somebody to say, this address is my etherwallet.eth, and your client shows it and the user trusts that that's the case.
Is it a function of ENS for the ways of lookups in for reverse? Or?
ENS supports the reverse lookups built in, but it doesn't attempt to enforce that mapping is true. So you can try anything you like.
And that can also be very useful for like resolving typos. So for example, if you type most of like Ethereum list types, like Ethereum or Ethereum, it will check that it points to Ethereum Foundation, and then it will simply rename your. So if you type on this Ethereum, it will rename Ethereum Foundation because it points and then goes back to.
So you mean if you enter a typo that you've registered?
Yes.
Then it goes.
Yeah.
It's effectively a set of redirect.
What it is, I pointed all of my typos to the Ethereum Foundation picture, and the Ethereum Foundation picture calls itself the Ethereum Foundation picture.
So yeah, that's a good point. There can be a reason why the reverse lookup would be different. So you've got two situations. One is the user enters an address and do a reverse lookup to see what to call it, in which case you should then do a forward lookup to prove that that's correct. Or the user enters a name, in which case you can do a reverse lookup on the address you got in order to show a canonical name in the case that you have many names legitimately pointing at the same address and you want to show which of them is the authoritative one. So I'm going to add a to-do list item for myself to add back to the official client implementation recommendations, but for anyone here to the client implementer, it's worth bearing in mind. So the next session is further developments on permanent registrar desiderata, because a significant number of us felt that we didn't cover it in enough detail yesterday. Does anybody want to summarise their impression of our conclusions from yesterday?
What I would like to do is go to the board and start listing the main things that we want out of the characteristic that we want out of the next permanent registrar. Look, unless you want to do some other thing, we could do that.
We kind of did that yesterday a little bit. I don't remember.
We were sort of trying to do that, but no,
did we come out with conclusions?
No, your technique was saying mostly why names why names are not free. Right? That's what's on the board here.
So we did come up with one conclusion, which was your suggestion of using release rates to calculate an earned and a cost of rent. But there's a lot more that we can solidify. So that seems like a reasonable
what I
starting
think we are trying to do here is we have like the auction, we have the rent, we have a lot of like different parameters that we are trying to optimize. We have like
There's one. People have walked off and play with them. Oh, the eraser.
eraser, yes, that's what I'm looking for. So we have the auction, we have the rent, we have a lot of parameters that we can play with and we want to play with. And like we have the whole burn versus hold versus stake versus send somewhere. And I would say that the things that we want to change in the next register would be, tell me if you, one of the things I would say is have some sort of rent that helps an utility function, right? Have some sort of rent that forces the owner to eventually, like periodically think about, do I want to keep this name or do I want to release it? Rent for utility.
Or basically like incentive to release.
Yes, incentive to release.
Yeah, and basically like there's two kind of incentives to the release that we have talked about. One of them is like rent or like renewal fees.
Or getting something
your
back.
deposit back.
Or getting a deposit back. The second thing I think a lot of people were talking is also have some sort of system in which for undisputed names, you have a more simplified process, right? And it doesn't need to mean that those are two systems. Maybe there is a way for the auction to, if you find a way for the auction to review itself, then if I make a bid and after like 48 hours or 34 hours, I am the only one who has the bid, then automatically I won the bid. I don't need to like go there and reveal it and something like that, right? So make a system that if there's only one person that wants that name, then that person gets it and he doesn't need to do anything else. But if there are disputes, we have disputes, right? I would call that simplified. I need more. That has one bidder. Is there anything else that you think we could put up here? Or things we want out of that name register, right?
Yeah, we kind of wanted one of these grace periods after rent runs out.
Yes.
Or
so whatever. Yeah.
Renewal period. Or
Great
whatever.
point.
2 periods. First,
what's the
the
grace period?
ability to renew it, but it.
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is like in more general terms is you don't want to surprise people, right? If you don't want for someone to suddenly realize that they've lost their names, right?
I mean, I think we can be more specific. We want the name to turn off, stop resolving before they lose ownership.
Yeah, how do
Okay.
you do that functionally?
In block numbers.
It's got to be in the resolver.
It's got to be in the resolver already.
Oh, you can allow someone to eliminate resolvers without changing the name.
You can take the resolver away for the name.
I'm going to just call this grace periods.
Yeah.
But the idea behind it is that whatever we have here is something that won't be surprising and won't be something that people will have the information 6 months to a year in advance that they know that they need to do something. And that can be a grace period. Maybe the grace period actually lasts a year in which like a whole full year the person can still like renew it or something like that, right? So
hopefully less than a year.
yeah, but I mean there must be a very long grace period that it's not about like someone simply forgetting.
It's like 90 days in .com world. Like both the 2 grace periods.
Yeah, okay. We're talking about different things. Like 90 days is the grace period, but if I want to renew my name, I can probably go in there and renew it for 4 years.
Oh yeah.
Right.
But that's not the grace period. That's kind of like the amount of time that you prepay for, or the amount of
It's a
time
time
you're
to
guaranteed
make the
have to be
decision.
registered for, or the amount of time you need to leave your deposit in. basically it's the minimum amount of time you can register a name for.
Yeah, but my point is that we want that there is a time to make the decision, that you can make the time, and there's not something that suddenly there's a high range.
You should have certainty about when, latest, or not earliest, when at earliest,
Predictability, maybe. Predictability
when at
of
earliest your
prices.
name will expire.
No, I don't think predictability, because
It's
a
built-in
system which is
safety.
completely brutal is still predictable.
It's built-in safety, knowing how people behave.
Yeah. So I think I kind of said it. People need to know the worst case, earliest time they need to renew.
Okay, well,
Is this also encapsulating the pre-commitments for sort of subdomain holder kind of safety?
well, I would say that
If you want to be clever, you can start the auction process during that time too. It's just that if it gets replayed by the end, everybody gets a refund.
Well, we were talking about having two grace periods, one of which your domain still resolves and you have an opportunity to get it back before you lose it, and one of which your domain no longer resolves and is like a guaranteed idle period, if you like, so that things definitely break before they get changed.
Oh,
And you can start the auction.
They were talking about one where it doesn't resolve and you can renew it, and then one where it doesn't resolve and you can't.
So actually, so during the period where you can't renew it, you can do the auction then.
You
because you
can
know
still
that
start
it's-
the auction.
So actually, it's gonna be an
Just that it
option to
can't-
renew, like you can't just do it
No,
instantly.
no, if you are the person who held that name, you can just renew.
Fair
But
play.
if you wait too
field.
long, then the auction is gonna, the result of the auction will.
So there's.
well, maybe, that's also.
The auction can start when you go into the first grace period.
Yep.
And then it'll just like throw.
Yeah, but
if
then-
they ever.
Then you want people, you don't want people to have like hold their funds for 6 months.
Yeah, second.
Yeah,
You know, it doesn't really matter that much, right? Technically, it's still safe either way.
Very equivalent.
I mean, equivalent in
In-
some equivalence class.
It doesn't really matter. So it's, the thing that we're actually wanting here is built-in, like,
Predictability, right? No built-in.
it's security. It's a thing that makes sure that there's a period, that you can't just switch something over. You can't just like very quickly swap somebody's token ICO out, and now all of a sudden
You
it's
wanna
yours.
know that live
It's like the
domains
users would be
are
notified, so
probably
you're
gonna
gonna
get
get
renewed
both,
things.
like a person who owns the domain,
Right,
and
it's gonna get
anyone
everyone's
who's
attention.
that.
and
Built-in
enough
protection.
time to
Yeah.
do it,
Protection,
fix
okay.
it.
Fail safe.
There you go, fail safe.
Safe protection, yeah.
There's the word, naming things. I don't know.
That's the word.
Whatever, we understood what we meant.
Beyond.
Okay, now what we could do is like just keep talking about generics, or we could speak a little bit more specifics. So for instance, the auction system, right? If we want to have like this two set, we imagine that we have two systems, right? We want that if you are the only person to own the domain, then you can probably make a single auction, a single transaction, and that should be enough. But if the name is disputed, then not. There are many ways in which we can try to do that, right? We could switch from a blind auction to a more traditional auction where you put down an auction and then we wait a grace period of 24 hours in which other people can make other auctions, and then that has some sort of limitation so that people can, the auction cannot run forever.
So can I just ask if there were any other points people wanted
Yeah.
to add to this list? Didn't you have mentioned something?
I know there was chatter yesterday in terms of those pre-commitments for subdomain. So I don't know
Yeah,
if that's
so we
part of
wanted
this,
to
so-
facilitate securing subdomains.
How is that? How does that affect the top level domain?
It affects there are ways we could design the top level domain that make it either easier or harder for people to recommit to the security of their subdomains.
So one example of that was that anyone can renew a top level
Yes.
domain,
Okay, yes.
but you can do that
I'm
on
still
the
firmly
downsides.
against that.
Yeah, me too.
Why?
Because,
It's really easy to grief. Now, the griefing is not necessarily directly hurting somebody, but it's really easy to make things drag on artificially.
Yeah,
No,
still-
it
you
costs
can still
money.
get
It's
the
not
owner-
that, it's not truly easy.
I
Oh,
just,
and you can still give the owner the ability to revoke the domain actively.
I mean, but if renewals
Or
are
you-
long,
But
like,
you can do the opposite also. You can also create a contract that allows anyone to renew if you want it.
But, no, but I
You don't have to.
it doesn't matter how
We'll
long
make it so when you secure the contracts for your subdomains, they're secure even in the case of sale. It doesn't matter. So you could basically say if you started the auction period while, like, you know, the domain was like kind of going into limbo and it was sold, but basically if there was a way to protect those domains after the domain was sold and transferred, it wouldn't matter at all.
well, if it expires, what happens if it expires?
Well,
Is it
so-
protected if it's
Everything
not
was
paid for?
zero.
There's that
So in that case, you would have to give the
Yeah,
subdomain the ability to renew.
Well, that's what we're, yeah, so, I think one way you could prevent, griefing is by, having checks on who you actually allow to register, so you can say it's not anyone, but only a subdomain.
Yeah, or, you know, or you say, like in our case, like, yeah, anyone can re-register it because we hope that if we forget to pay, someone will.
Well, no,
But in Piper's personal case, he's like,
I think it's a
You
future
know.
flag that you leave up to the contract that you
Yeah.
do.
If
I can
Because you're making a
imagine-
decision that's easy to make one level up.
I think you're right, because the reason that we originally proposed allowing anyone to register was because we were uncertain about the permanent registrar thing, but we have more or less solved that by our recommendation to lock up deeds until the registrar changes and to recommit. So, but would everyone agree that there are design decisions that will make it either easier or harder for people to provide guarantees to their subdomain holders?
This one feels like
Yeah.
the safety fault.
If it
That we can have.
expires, doesn't anyone can remove it anyway.
no, we're talking about.
Only after a long fallow period, and then they get to completely
Well, if they-
control what happens.
But if it,
The
So-
subdomain,
you have to protect the subdomains past the renewal period then. So if you protected the like,
Well, we're just talking about if anyone can re-register a domain. So
yeah,
if anyone ever can call the contract that says, right, like re-register this, renew this, here's the money, renew it, or if only certain people can.
I think that should be up for the domain owner to decide.
That's what
Yeah.
I think too.
Yeah.
I think the owner of the domain is the ultimate arbiter of everything that happens below.
And then that means that it's as simple as creating a contract that has a function that anyone can call, and it's
Right.
called.
So you get
You
ownership to
register.
the smart contract that has the function, and then everybody can call that function on your smart contract that renews your domain.
Right, and like me, I could throw some
Yeah,
money
yeah,
in.
hold on. Would anybody like to state an argument for the opposite of that?
What that
This
people would
isn't
be able
true,
to.
but like, is
Yeah, okay.
anybody, are we on board?
Yeah, my
We
only,
are.
my only concern was because of the change of API, but we have resolved that elsewhere, so it's no longer necessary.
Right.
Anyone else?
My best argument against it, not to drag it on too much, was just the fact that we did already concede to that period of slight danger when upgrading and so forth. So if we wanted to try to evade that danger, it would maybe need to be solved at the core registrar.
I think we actually.
Yeah, I know.
We established that we were so uncertain about what this API would look like that we didn't want to lock ourselves down.
So I agree, so we should just abstract.
Does anyone have other?
I liked economic efficiency. Is that something we want to?
Define economic
Yes, I
efficiency.
think that could be utility.
What do you mean economic efficiency?
So it was the notion that the correct owner should be paying as close to their price, or the smallest difference between
I think,
with the unrealized
So
gain.
the person who's willing to pay the most ends up having.
yeah,
Right, or at least, yeah.
So they don't need to pay the most, ideally they pay nothing,
yeah,
and they get the one, but they're still the highest bid, I guess. But that's,
Yeah, it seems like a far-fetched
Hard
part,
to
but
do.
if we can optimize
well,
for it, it would be
it's a
worth it.
metric, we're never gonna reach it, but we can.
Right, we can
always
optimize for it a bit.
Yeah,
I think it's worth value.
yeah. But that might be what utility is.
Okay, then we should,
And I mean,
in case it's not explicit.
Yeah, I think one is
Yeah.
examples of how we want to achieve that.
yeah, okay, because like somehow the idea, the hypothesis is that the person who the squatter is going to sell the name to would be willing to bid more than they were, which is why the squatter is guaranteed to have a profit from that.
Well, then
And so
for,
somehow utility in that, in the sense of people getting the names and efficiency You can imagine the utility means efficiency.
Yeah, but I mean, going back to auction, I think what you're saying for me is a very good defense of the current victory auction system, right? Because then what we have is a system in which the person who is willing to pay the most ends up winning the.
But if you miss that auction, then
If you didn't want people to be guaranteed to be able to hold the names, you just re-hold the auction every so often, and then you would have you would have a pretty strong guarantee that as soon as someone who's willing to bid more, they would take that off your hands.
And I for one value stability over.
Right, but it is interesting.
that would be the way.
That's for like you just need your like own little ENS, like Vlad's ENS. It's just like all this like super crazy experimental stuff that doesn't damage like the real ENS.
I also think it's encouraging that the person who values the name most long after the auction might not be the person who owns it, and it might be a good thing. Because you got my etherwallet.eth because they value it the most now in this wonderful hypothetical alternate reality. A year from now, some scammer might value it more highly because if they got it off new, they could then redirect all the money, all the incoming money to their own wallets.
Actually,
So it'd actually be worth more to the.
So how much is the Mitre wallet?
They won't make money by selling it back.
The top
They
bid
make money by
was
efficiency.
500.
Yes.
So I think that's a great example. So the top bidder was for 500 Ether, right?
Yeah,
So
and
that's
they paid like.
that's like that's $50,000, like $100,000 almost.
Like that's what I'm saying.
So the interesting thing is that MiTreWallet.com was at some point a domain that was valued at $10, right? And now it's a domain that it's valued at $50,000. And the interesting part of it is that the value that was created by the holder of MiTreWallet.com.
Yeah.
So it's not that value that name doesn't belong to the person who wants to buy it for $50,000.
But the issue is that the value isn't, value that you make by having the name necessarily, because you're acting in good faith. You don't make that money, right? Or in some way, like the price of the name isn't the reserve price of my etherwallet.
Although presumably the main flow of folks do value it at $50,000 reputational damage, otherwise they
Right.
But they can't necessarily place that as a bid.
It may be worth as much.
Yeah, we would pay $50,000 for it. We would not pay.
Well, okay, wait, hold on. We didn't pay
You
50,000,
also-
never mind, so stop. We didn't pay 50,000, we didn't offer to pay 50,000. The value of it today is different than the value when the auction went on, just simply because like we had just monetized when the auction was happening and we had no idea how much money we would make from these monetization features and we didn't know what the value of our company. We still don't. Like literally we're up until 4 a.m. trying to figure out the value of my EtherWallet. So that's one thing. The other thing is that and this scares the crap out of me on the DNS level. And it's been like a point of contention the last few weeks, but like how much is myetherwallet.com worth to us and how much is it worth to someone else? And the question is, this is like freaking terrifying. So like hold on to your seats for a second. Like, what is the value of somebody getting myetherwallet.com right now? Like, what would that value be? The value would be the amount that you could take from people.
Quite high.
It would be like,
How many thousands of dollars a second do you think?
that's the value of myetherwallet.com. And like that's why like I don't like this anymore and I want out. Like please help
It's
me.
interesting because
But I mean, it's
what he's saying is that for MiTreWallet.com is worth more for a scammer than to a legitimate business,
That's right. Exactly.
Because if someone comes to you and gives like a check saying this is the amount of value I want to give you for like owning your business, it's a very different thing than this is the check, I'm going to give it to you and you don't ask any question later.
Right. And so that's the case that we've had legitimate offers for like, acquisition or mergers or like buying the business from other legitimate businesses, like other people in the blockchain space that are in a similar thing that would like to own my wallet for legitimate purposes, probably. And those, I mean, hopefully, I don't know, but they're legitimate, they make whatever. Anyway, but those offers, right, those offers are always lower than a random yachmail.com email that emails us and says, hey, I'm prepared to sign a Bitcoin, sign from a Bitcoin address that has, like $10 million in it. Like what, would you be open to selling? Like we've had 3 of those, and like it's like holy shit, like it's a big thing. Like people are literally like, our business is not worth 10 million to someone who, well, I don't know, but the offers that we've received previously for like acquiring my EtherWallet brand and the domain and the company is less valuable than like some random yacht mail
The
dude.
malicious thing that you can do.
Yeah.
If you're willing to be malicious, it's worth more.
And with that, I can totally concede that the repeating auction thing is like participate at any time probably wouldn't work.
Because in the end,
I mean, in the end, the solution is like you don't ever put keys on my EtherWallet.
and I think in the end, what it
That's
means
the
is that the moment that like
Because then the value goes
Or
down, like
basically,
Fishers.
you
Like the reason that this is able to happen right now is because like
people might get a weird version of your website.
because ETH grew faster than like our roadmap for like security of the ecosystem. And so now we're like, okay, let's fix it.
How do we get everyone on hardware wallets?
Yeah, like can we buy all the hardware wallets in the world?
I feel like what you need is like something that like just checks the hash of the HTML and like,
Right, so the problem with that is that
You have to plug in or
users
something.
don't, like you have to have a third party and then
Or
obviously
plug
you have a third party.
Can you
Right.
guys write a really small browser extension?
Right, well you can use MedMap now, so
No,
just do
to-
that.
To actually add you a second layer of when you go to myetherwallet.com.
Okay.
It's like,
Yeah, just so that you go through the Chrome store. And so we have like the ENS kind of like.
Yeah, and we also
trust
have a Chrome
model.
extension. We can add anything to the Chrome extension. We have the phishing things. The reality is this, okay? There are a lot of things that we can do. The reality is this, though. Like, users don't even look at the freaking URL. How can we expect them to go to a third party and install something or trust something in a thing?
Because the Chrome store establishes trust. You get like
Right.
reviews, user.
they won't even go to the Chrome.
They won't
If you
even
just
go to
don't
the
link
Chrome.
it, they'll never go.
Like,
if,
you know,
if they install the plugin, then I'm pretty sure you can use it.
I mean, and the thing is, the only way,
people are just clicking random links they got from
They're not gonna go.
Black.
It's like there's no No, it's definitely not gonna
like, you can provide all the value you want. You can
You
provide
can take your own risk, although a lot of people get fished that way.
They, and
Like,
that's the thing
recommend-
is like it's a real thing right now. People are losing money right now, and we tell them every single day on Reddit and Twitter and in 40 different slots to freaking install 8. There's 8 different extensions you can install. You can install MetaMask, you can install ours, you can install the EAL, which is more lightweight. You can install all these things that they don't.
how do you make it a lot harder for people?
No, we literally just remove
Hold
the
on.
key store private key, and they literally
That's
can't.
actually what I was just gonna recommend,
Yeah.
to deprecate key store and private.
Yeah,
We are, we talked about this last
And
night.
to put in artificial delays for when you want to use those, that force you to sit there and wait for it to do work in the browser while you unlock it for a long time.
You just make them have to use an offline, like do it locally so that they
Seriously,
cannot do it.
it's like, hey, you really shouldn't be doing this. I'm gonna give you some time to write down a calendar entry for set aside time to get a hardware wallet. Stop, this shit's going away.
Yeah, I mean,
If the address is associated with the public key, the private key stuff is associated with the public key, then you just check the balance of the normal key in any order that is like most profitable.
Do you know who will not put those delaying places? The scam site that they are on,
Absolutely.
right?
yeah, and this is the same thing with like caching.
Okay, but
We
those
just play a
people are
message.
already fucked.
Right.
But the people who are currently actually getting to myetherwallet.com safely on a regular basis,
For the future,
this
well.
motivates them
Okay.
And this is,
to go ahead and make the decision right now. You can link them to both places and make it take long enough that it's like, if you go buy this, it'll be done really shortly after.
I just want to remember that we have 1 hour,
Yeah.
30 minutes
That's
left.
a diversion.
Right.
okay, anyways, yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, I don't know what we were talking about, but,
Let's talk about ENS.
oh, the value of ENS, the value
Yeah.
of a domain.
Mostly it's because like the value of an ENS name,
Yeah.
once it's bought, it doesn't belong to ENS anymore, right? It belongs to the owner of the name.
Reasonably strong guarantees that as long as you follow the easy rules, you will probably be able to own this name in perpetuity.
Exactly.
That's
Right.
that's the 99.999 whatever guarantee that people need to
Exactly.
have.
Yeah,
As long as they agree to follow.
So certainty
And I
for
would
us.
say-
But no more.
I would
This
say
is
that,
certainty
yeah,
and predictability.
yeah,
Certainty, yes.
You know,
and I would say
I
like,
would definitely tamper that with like,
But don't think about using it for terrorism, that's too bad.
Well, I mean, if you can ensure certainty that
And so there was reasons why, maybe we would want to deregister names.
So,
But that's a second level solution now.
Not necessarily.
I mean, okay,
theoretical.
I don't know if you're here for this one.
I don't mean absolute certainty, sorry,
No,
I
but-
mean a level of
But there was the way Nick said it made me feel more certain the way you said it. The way you said it, it was cool. There were 9s, only 4 of them.
Look, if,
If you have 4 9s.
It's sort of the don't be a douchebag.
I mean, what's the point of?
Yeah.
You don't
deserve.
being an asshole to everybody.
If you need to seriously consider whether or not we revoke your name,
Right.
then you probably should.
If douchebag.if, if you own douchebag.if and it's not resolved anywhere, no browser will accept going into there, and you can send money to it, then it's almost the same as not owning it. You're just paying rent for something.
It's not a douchebag, that's the problem.
Okay, whatever. These limit states
It's whatever it resolves to. If it's nothing, then it's fine.
I mean, most, yeah.
Okay, and so should we talk about auctions or things like that?
Upfront fees, are those in there at all?
I would say that they are part of rent and.
Okay, so fees / rent, so
Yeah.
maybe we should incentive for utility rather than rent for utility then.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe we could have a separate list of just all the parameters we're talking about. So we could-
Okay, we could have that.
I think an initial, a totally burn fee separate from ongoing rent, separate
Oh,
from
yeah.
deposit.
I mean, there are a lot of many separate
Not that many, too, I know you listen.
I mean, just if we change the auction mechanism, we.
Well, one of them will be the auction.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk about the auction mechanism, right?
Yeah, but can we call it one parameter and then
Okay.
get to once we.
I see, yeah, got it.
Oh, no, doing that?
So, okay, parameters. So we can treat the auction mechanism, auction model. And I would separate that we can treat the fees in the auction model. It would be fees for entering, right? Fees for participating.
Yeah.
Entry.
Entry, yeah. Entry, yeah. Fees, entry fees.
Participation.
Although I thought the idea was to control that with the registration.
I mean, this is a knob, it could be set to 0.
Right, but I thought the goal was to set the minimum bid on the auction based on the fee basis.
So I personally don't need any minimum bids on the auction. I don't understand why there is a minimum bid on the auction. I don't think that's really actually doesn't make that much sense.
Fair enough. I mean, well, I would say there is one now because there is no rent. And if there was neither rent nor
Then people would have an incentive to
then it would be
register.
free.
Yeah, so there, I think there has to be a cost.
Yeah, but if there's a rent, then you don't need a minimum bid.
Got it.
Okay, so I would say the deposit or burn would be one of the knobs that you can.
Yeah, which is basically the ongoing fee. This is an entry fee, ongoing fee. We could have an exit fee, but I don't know if that helps actually.
It's a parameter. It can be
You just put it in. That's
Well, yeah, negative fees, exit fee. But then you have to pay exit, having the
Well,
fees.
instead of saying that, I would say the rent fee, because the rent fee is what makes you go exit, right?
Well, so that's the recurring fee, which it gives you incentive to exit, but you can have additional one, which is that revenues from those things can be paid out to you when you register. So actually, that's a little bit.
Second level.
No, that's not second level because
You'd have to
the fees are, I mean, presumably being burned.
I'm saying you can put that.
Yeah, but I think that.
Second level?
I'm not
Yeah,
sure you can.
but I think that
If
that's
the
a
money's
good
being
point.
burned, you can't.
Oh, okay.
Can someone check how many ethers we have on the zero debt address? I am curious to know that. Because, yeah, right now we are burning fees, so,
Yeah.
but if there is some sort of mechanism that we want to incentivize something, we could be using that for that, right? We could, instead of burning this fee, we could have a pot that uses incentives.
Yeah, but it would have to not be annual. Yeah, exactly.
So I have a
personally-
suggestion,
Yeah.
and it may be controversial, I don't know. Can we somehow propose changing that to a different multi-sig that's a lot harder to get into, so that we're not throwing away the opportunity to do stuff with that, but with a really strong commitment that we won't.
Oh, like manipulating the fees of the.
One, just to stop throwing it
Stop
all away.
throwing money away.
Yeah,
I-
because we would never choose to, like,
So I-
because there's sometimes reasons to make irrevocable choices, but we've already agreed to replace the thing.
So one of the proposals I would like to make on the linear and so on is to see how much agreement there is that we should actually send fees to an organisation whose job it is to develop and defend DNS.
Well,
I mean, or to incentivize any of the systems we implement for like people to use them.
Okay,
If you have
so
like a big pot and then people do something. they get it.
exactly. So here's an example, right? That's something that we trailed around as an example yesterday, but I would like to go back to. So let's suppose that the auction model we want to keep the auction model, the current blind system auction model. But let's suppose that we have some way in which that auctions are unsealed automatically, right? One way to do it would be to time lock them somehow. The problem with time locks is that it requires a constant proof of work in that you need to open up those auctions. So what you could have is you could have a pot which all the fees go into that pot, and that pot then is distributed to people who are constantly mining those auctions to open them.
But there's no purpose in making that a pot, is there? Because every auction needs a reveal. So every
No,
auction
there
has
is,
to
because
be
you
revealed.
need to target difficulty.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because we want to
It's just
target
for
the
difficulty
difficulty.
targeting.
But how does that help the
Because if you know how much people are willing to spend for a certain amount, you know how much there is in that like pool of
You can,
miners.
you can limit how profitable it is.
Yeah.
No, but
Nick,
if, stop.
Yeah, sorry.
If the amount that you have to incentivize someone to unlock a bid exceeds the amount that goes into that pot per bid, the pot is going to run out of money. If
yeah,
if it's
of
not
course.
enough, then it's going to fill up. So why not just pay for the reveal fee with the bid?
Here's why. I feel that all bids need to be reviewed, and that goes to that one guy that just wants his name, and that goes for that person who is like putting $1 million on a name. So I think it's fair that if you take, let's say, a 1% fee, you take it from everyone and pay everyone equally to have all bids reviewed, right?
You mean
So that's why it's a common pot.
So here's an idea. You can reveal, get your money back, or someone could do the time lock crypto and take your money.
And
Like,
most
you can do either
people,
or. That
right,
way you
most
have-
bids are revealed, right?
Yeah.
And with this incentive, like, it's not that many. You still lose your money if you don't reveal it, but there will be people who go pick up that trickle of.
Yeah. And the whole fee can actually be variant depending on the amount of people who are mining, right? So if suddenly there are a lot of people like opening bids, then that like burn fee can go be smaller or bigger. It depends.
It's still a little bit tricky because individual miners have to be assigned to an individual blocks for individual reveals.
We're talking about short enough amounts of time
And
to do it in
so,
your browser.
3 days? No.
well,
Because it will be orders
you
of
need-
magnitude
you
slower, and
need to
therefore
be able
someone
to-
can reveal it early.
yeah, you need to go, that's right. So basically, you need to be able to like set it up in your browser, and someone else needs to have to do it sequentially and have that take a lot of time. And so like somehow,
I have a question. Is there like
how
a
many threads you have in your browser?
like I would say that this like change like is a fairly large change to like the game theory behind it. Like
Yeah,
you know when
I
you
would
come to that, are there
say
any?
it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
Oh no, I'm not even worried about that. Like I'm more worried about like is there some weird incentive or decentivization
Well,
thing
we
that
are
would
adding
happen
a new player
because
to
of
the
this?
game, right? We are adding a miner.
If this market for miners is pretty efficient.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
the
wait,
thing, is
hold
like,
on. What?
the miners would be motivated up to the point that it was not profitable, but if they became unprofitable, you just lose miners. Like,
Yeah.
it was literally.
Isn't mining
efficient,
always
that's
a
what it
race
is.
to the bottom?
Yeah, it is.
Only if it's efficient, only if it's competitive.
Okay, so wait, I have a question. Why do we force people to lose their reveals in the first place? Like, why don't we just like
We were,
why don't we just give them their thing?
Because that does affect games.
Yeah,
If you aren't penalised for failing to reveal, then you can set a series of bids at different levels on an auction you want to punish someone on. You can wait for them to reveal, and then you can reveal a bid price just below that to force them to pay way more than they would have if it was an honest bid.
Okay, so in this situation, right, like, in this situation, the reveal isn't, like, the money for your reveal isn't lost in the same sense, like, it's given to someone else. So does that open up the possibility for some?
If the market for mining is sufficient, then they bear exactly the same cost as the revenue they got. And therefore, it's that cost.
I wanna point something out that it may not even be important for us to go too far into this, because we wouldn't do this all at once anyways. We would still put a big locked multi-sig in front of that money during the time that we developed it. Like,
Oh, yeah,
if you wanna hash out a
I
mining
consider.
idea, we can, but we have a next step right now.
Yeah, and this is a shiny, happy additional feature that I don't think is core to the future. You did ask a question earlier, how much was in the data trees?
Yeah.
Presently, there's so let me start by saying, as of the 31st of July, there was 8,553 ether lost, and the data address, of course, contains that plus fees. The data address now has 11,573 ether and 0.0001 fuck tokens.
It doesn't have no fucks to it.
So up to 3,000 ether in fees has been paid. Some because there's a time interval between the figure I have here for ether lost and now. So the remaining 3,000 ether is either fees paid or it's more losses since the end of that.
So I like Piper's notion of having like build a multi-sig and then we decide later. The problem with that is that there's once it starts having like 8,000 liters, 11,000 liters, then there is some perverse incentive to like, oh, let's build a foundation for helping like the lawyers who want to protect the multi-sig holders.
Okay, how about this? Hold on, how about this? Make it a choice and the default is 0. It's an opt-in.
It's like a fee for auto reveal.
Do you want to burn it or do you want it to go to?
It's option. Nothing. If you don't make any action, it'll still behave exactly as it does now. You do not have to change to this.
Wait, is this on the user end?
As you register,
The burn it percentage is fine.
right? And people can choose, and it's a
Okay,
choice.
got it.
And then maybe it's nothing, maybe it's a plunge, but people chose to do it.
And you have
It's
to
gonna be a
default the
confusing,
burn
but
price
like-
after.
Well, we
I
kind of can't default. You accept a boolean or a parameter or
Yeah.
the UI.
No, but what I'm getting at is that there's like a across the board, like you guys agree to make sure that your interface.
I
Like,
mean,
if nobody changes the interface, they will have to add this to the interface.
I mean,
So the instructions are.
maybe this is radical, but I would fully support forming a organization with a charter that gives it restrictions on what it can do and just saying all of these go to that organization. I don't think that's outrageous.
I mean,
Right, and it's not, except like going to Reddit.
Sorry.
Like, it's not just like going to Reddit and like nobody will ever tell you that it's not like.
Well, that was my question
fun.
yesterday, that if there was a cost, where is the ether gonna go and where
I
does
really
all
feel
this
that
go?
So that present
simplify the system,
story.
not
Yeah.
increase the complexity. I think that it's too complex.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, but I mean,
Should
there
be
is some
something that's
solution
gotta
to the
steer
different
this
problem.
ship anyway,
Maybe
so
lower the fees,
it's
maybe
gotta develop. It's
don't
gotta-
lock the entire amount of the bill. I don't know, creative solutions, make it simpler. Okay, so, but I would be happy with no reveal at all, and I don't think that, I mean, I didn't think about it like long enough. So it's true, we are sort of adding complexity in the system side, but to try to reduce complexity on the user side without changing fundamentally the option. If we change the option, maybe there could be some way in which there's no review is needed or something like that. But then we need like the ultimate goal. So get rid of the reveal and then all that stuff is for the user. Yeah, but getting rid of the reveal means you cannot have a blind option. Right. And if you can't have a blind auction anymore, then you have to think, okay, which auction do you want?
Maybe we can solve the problem of not having like reasons for this.
Yeah, anyways, but just because we have a lot of parameters doesn't mean that it's complex, right? But I think a lot of these parameters will end up being like 0 and something with a relatively simple rule.
That's
Or
for the
like,
user, not the complexity of the system.
Oh.
Like, yes, like for the user, if the user needs to do more stuff and know more stuff, and
Yeah.
we can't even solve it on the client side.
yeah, but we did talk about having this intermediate layer, right? Like actually people who will serve as like, you know, I don't know, maybe like ECDNS or something, you know, where they'll end up like making these registries for users who want a similar experience.
You're talking about making the user do less stuff. When you're talking about mining and incentives and time blocking, what we are saying is that there is a way in which the user can do a single transaction, and he doesn't know that his transaction is sort of complicated, but he only does a single transaction, and then that gets unlocked automatically, right? And maybe, and of course, yeah, maybe that creates some sort of problems because now we have to incentivize someone to do the proof of work, etc. And then that's how we got to fees. But then I agree, we shouldn't be talking about what to do with the fees unless, and what behavior to incentivize, unless we know which behavior will be needed and what fees will be needed. So maybe we should talk about the other parameters.
I'd also like to clarify that I actually think even if some sort of organization got fees, I think failed reveals should still be burned. Because otherwise whoever gets the fees has less diverse incentive to make it more difficult to use the ENS.
Yeah, that's there.
And here's
Also, if you give it to the miners, they're exactly the ones who can make it more difficult to use ENS.
So let's talk. One of the things I know is controversial is the deposit. So I would like to bring that up.
Yeah.
Because honestly, for me, if we just kept the notion of like a very blind auction with a deposit and added a rent fee based on release, I would be super happy with this. But maybe there are some good reasons not to have a deposit and have something else instead. My defense of the deposit is that the deposit is basically a burn that you can recover from.
Yeah.
So I think a deposit is always better than a burn, because by burning something, you're saying you can't recover it. And honestly, if I burn $1,000 in a name that you never get back, I'm not ever releasing the thing.
Yeah. Right? So here's my calculus. When you burn it, you're distributing it to all the whales who own Ether. And giving them an unfair advantage through the burning. If you don't burn it, then you give the advantage to the whales who place deposits because they have lower cost of capital, right? And so the cost of capital for someone who has a lot of Ether is way lower than the cost of capital for someone who needs to spend their Ether. And so either way, you know, when the whales are disproportionately benefit, right?
No.
But in the ENS version,
just literally not disproportionately benefit.
Absolutely
disproportionately.
No, because they have lower cost of capital.
No, for the burning. They benefit proportionally.
Disproportionately too small Ether holders.
Right, but no, it's proportional.
Yeah, okay, fine.
It's what you're measuring for identity.
No, so I think you're right, unless we think about whether a user or a whale is burning, right? Because if a whale is burning feet, they end up redistributing themselves more than the users, and so the whales get disproportionately favored by burning fees. So okay, they're the one burning.
What's
right?
your point?
So basically, my point basically is that like the security deposit thing is not disproportionately favors whales because whales have lower cost of capital, right? Like it's easier for them to justify locking up any amount of Ether than anyone else, right? So it's the cost that you're charging everyone is different, right? It's not like everyone's paying the same cost over time, right? People who have a lot of Ether are paying a lower cost over time for the same deposit size. And so that means that like the cost, so you're saying it's good because it's an alternative to burning, but at least burning charges everyone the same amount for every name. Whereas with the deposit, you're charging people radically different amounts for every name. Because even if it's 10 Ether deposit on two different names, if one is held by me and one is held by a whale, we're going to have very different costs. Whereas if we're burning, it's the same cost.
I like a lot of things about the deposit scheme, but I think I underappreciated how big an effect that has. And yeah, some people have very low cost of capital compared to others. The other thing we're considering is that the cost for my Ether wallet to register my Ether wallet.eth is whatever their bid is, because they're never going to release it. But the cost for a speculator to register it is that amount over whatever period they happen to hold it for.
And that should be serious.
It actually
Exceptionally works.
Yeah,
That's the way it works.
That's a good point, actually. Because I want to think that if you want to hold that name forever, then you would never release it at my back, right?
Well, we did talk
Well,
in the
that's
past
right.
about gradually refunding deposits if you hold the name for a while.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I was thinking
Time
that as
locking it
well.
on a
So like if
But
we were to
you still-
hold my Ether wallet for 5 years or something, like we
Yeah.
would get a certain amount back.
Or you get it has a half-life, you get
Right,
half back.
but-
Yeah.
The next question I asked was like, obviously, like, okay, does that incentivize squatters to just hold the name for 5 years?
Instead of
5 years is a long time.
Right, and that's the thing.
They'll do it for the first half-life.
Well, or they'll just sell it for a price that includes the that it's still locked.
Right.
They
I mean,
don't
that's
have to
always
hold
true.
it.
That's always true.
But it still has the issue that different people have different costs of capital.
Right.
On the other hand, that can actually be counteracted with yet another second layer solution. People can offer loans. They can say, we'll pay your bid in return for a fixed yearly fee because we have a low cost of capital and you have a higher cost of
Yeah,
capital.
so that
Yeah, but
doesn't that mean the opposite also? Because
Where's the fee coming from?
Nick,
The fee comes from the whale, the investor.
Yeah, but decentralized
No, but how do
voting
they get
is.
paid?
So
How's the whale get paid?
the whale forms a contract which says if you pay us 1 ETH per year into this contract,
Yeah.
then you
So
keep your domain.
so the whale needs to trust me to do that?
No.
How do
If
they
you
know that you'll?
don't, then they take the domain back and get the whole deposit.
Oh, okay.
Their loan is secured by the domain.
Okay, so they could cost the uncertainty about whether or not this contract will last. Because like as soon as they look at it with money, then you know.
Well, if you don't pay for your house, then it gets repossessed.
Yeah, sure, it's like a loan.
It is.
Yeah, but well, it's not it's a loan.
It's a loan where the other side is not allowed to reinvest it.
And the lender owns the collateral, like controls the collateral directly.
but it also means the opposite, right? Because if that also means that if you have like a large amount of money deposited, you can take a loan with that as a collateral, meaning your cost of capital isn't that much, right? I have $1,000 here. I have €1,000 Ether here. I can take some sort of loan, so I can use that 1,000 Ethers elsewhere while I have that. So it's the cost of capital is sort of very hard to define.
But we can expect both those mechanisms to make the cost of capital more homogeneous, because people with a low cost of capital will loan money to those with a higher one and thus make a profit.
Any market for credit that leads like price discovery will kind of equalize people's cost of capital. But basically, like cost of capital is pretty well defined in terms of kind of like how much money you're willing to how much money you need as interest to lend me.
But then that does mean that if you're talking about very long time spans, having a half-life in which you can have part of your deposit back is something that can be solved, right? Because maybe Taylor doesn't mind having like 5 years holding that name for 5 years and getting only half of that for 5 years later. But maybe the Dutch guys will mind having to hold like for 5 years the same name, right? So that's an interesting way to think about.
But if they mind, they could just not hold it for that long and get all the money back.
Right.
Right.
I mean, the thing is that we're basically asking, does releasing money after a period of time to change anything, compared to the current system? Does it incentivize squatters in a negative way?
No, it seems like it doesn't affect squatters.
Right, and I would say that like if the period of time is sufficient, it's not going to affect the decision-making process of like squatters, because it's pretty much like the same situation that they're already in.
The difference is that they have more capital available for squatting there.
Okay, so then maybe what we're talking about
If they hold for 5 years.
Oh, so the half-life only starts after 5 years.
Yeah.
As soon as the money starts coming in.
And I feel long enough period of time to incentivize, because it's like, man, I don't want to hold it that long. Like that's
but then those things could be solved by the rent fees, right?
So
Because
rent fees is so simple.
Yeah, so no, my point is that if you hold the name, if that name has 100 Ethers inside there, and the rent fee is, let's say, half a meter per year, then what should happen is that by the time that you want to take the money out, that money should be discounted for the amount of time that you spent it. So you pay the rent automatically with the. So my point is that there will be a deposit, and that deposit would basically pay rent automatically until it reached a point where it was zero, and then when it's zero, it starts grace periods.
That makes a lot of sense. The way that I think about it is, you can think about it in terms of deposit or in terms of prepaid rent. Prepaid refundable rent.
Yeah, but is that
actually not refundable, right? So that's the question. Should it be refundable? The question is, do you withdraw before that drains, or do you have to be locked in?
Well, you can never withdraw completely because you always will have to pay the proportional rent.
Yeah, no, I know. But you might, okay, but can you withdraw like a few blocks after you register?
Maybe
I think if we want a continuous rent model like you're talking about, then it makes sense to be able to abandon the name immediately. The question, and if the winning price in the auction is paid outright, there's no reason to require people to hold a name for a certain amount of time. Because the reason we have a year minimum at the moment is because your cost of capital for holding a name for 10 minutes is almost nothing. But if you just need to pay it, then that actually incentivizes holding it for long enough to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, so
if there's no minimum, then we can actually do price discovery.
Now, if the deposit becomes the prepaid rent, then you do have to enforce a minimum period. Otherwise, somebody can just win an auction and then immediately today.
And then we win the auction and then keep the domain blocked because they have 100,000 users and keep winning the auction. And then increasing it
winning auctions have no intention of keeping.
Yeah.
What is the disadvantage, or what are the disadvantages of a system that just exerts fees rather than deposits?
Burning seems to be objectionable.
Oh, set aside for a moment where the fees go. Assume it's the best possible thing you can think of. The sponsoring nature.
It goes to your favorite thing.
Yeah.
Okay, my point would be that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know what my favorite thing is.
Other than you.
No, because you don't agree on
Come
it's not a swap, okay?
Yeah, you have we're good. Wrong word.
What's your answer to that? What
Does
is
it matter what it is?
No, just assuming that we're paying for something, no. Assuming that they're going to the best place.
Okay, so my point would that be, so we know that there are people that are willing to deposit $1 million into an name, right? We don't know exactly why they're crazy to do that, but we know that they are.
Well, it's a safe place for their.
So the point is, if the option is about burning, then about paying rent or anything else, my point is that unless we have like some sort of fixed and maximum caps, those fees can grow to be very large.
How is that different from auction deposits?
And the auction deposits can be very large also.
I want to suggest something that I think fits this model. So right now, everybody's got a deposit that they could get back if they release the fund, right?
Yeah.
So we should be able to, if we switch over to a new registrar, everybody expects to get their money back eventually, right?
At the latest when they release the note.
Right. The thing is worth that much ether in this amount of time. Like, it's an objective fact. So we can choose to start paying them back early. That's something that people will be fine with. We can't choose to burn their money when they've expected to get it back.
Or we can write a new registrar, which if you agree to upgrade to
Sorry,
all the money.
we should not force them.
Well, no, to clarify, we literally cannot force them to do
Excellent,
their money.
excellent. So, even with that, the new deeds coming out or whatever, or I don't know if we can retroactively figure out how to apply it to old stuff. I'm not sure it matters.
But you didn't pay rent.
The new deeds essentially just release your money back to you over a curve that does hit zero eventually, somewhat asymptotically maybe, I don't know. And we've still let people get their money back, but we have on some timeline, and we can make it relatively long, incentivize them to eventually let it go once it hits zero, especially if that's like a whatever timeline, and they'll let it go. If they want to keep it, they can keep it at that point. But it's essentially And it's asymptotic, so visually, it's not really worth very much.
But
Isn't your system decreasing?
Every minute that they keep it, it gets less and less and less.
You're decreasing your incentive to release it every minute that you buy. You're giving your money back anyway. Eventually it'll cost you nothing.
Yeah, you have to upgrade it to either pay rent or burn, like that's like that.
So there's no need it.
But isn't that kind of the same as paying, as like rent to own?
Sorry, it sounds like you're paying nothing, but I don't understand how that be.
The cost is actually used.
Like maybe if you added like an ongoing rent scheme,
Yeah.
like after a longer period, yeah.
I think we're talking about two different things.
Maybe it's okay.
I think that there are two factors here, and one of them is you start with like that's your deposit. There is first like the amount that you let's say this is the deposit, this is the amount you can take out, right? So one thing is like when as time goes by, the amount of you can take out goes up, but there's also rent, so that's your deposit. So in theory, if there's no rent, so this is the maximum amount you can take out. But if there's some sort of rent, then the curve should go something like this, where at every time you wait, there's less that you can take out because the rest you've paid in rent.
And you're just saying that your deposit gets spent on rent?
You can also withdraw it at any point before up to this bar, up to this amount. So they're saying you can't, your deposit is spent on rent, but also there's restrictions on how much that you can withdraw.
Right.
How does that fit with incenting people to release names at a time and the value to you to release a name at a
Well,
time?
I mean, now you have a capital cost and rent in the story, and the capital cost isn't infinite if you want to keep it in forever.
What is the
Not infinite, but you know, I guess it's that.
So we were saying, if you add your rent to the deposit, okay, you don't take anything out of the deposit, when you release the name, you get it back, that increases your incentive over time to give the name back.
All right. Well, that's true, but it also is like free. Oh, you're paying rent yourself.
Yeah.
It's like pretty much free. If your cost capital is zero, it's free.
Yeah, okay, so assuming you have infinite money, fine, but again, is there any other way to incent people to release the names?
Yeah, just charge them. Don't give them money. Don't give the money back.
Or show them,
Continue to charge them over time.
show them how much.
That way they don't want to avoid future expenses, then they.
I don't think it is free. If you're not paying rent yourself, you still have a cost capital of what you could have otherwise done.
Assuming your cost capital of zero is free.
That never applies in the real world.
Well,
There's always, you can always save.
I mean, it does sometimes.
Investing in something else.
We see negative interest rates sometimes.
So I still have to compelling answer for why this is better than a system where you just charge fees, where options cost money and rent costs money.
Okay, I love that. So how, the purpose
But it is a question of where that money goes.
No, that's the question we're delaying, that's the question we're not dealing with.
Okay, so I think one interesting part is that I like the idea, but then it comes to how do the actions go, right? Because how much you are willing to spend to buy a name is very different. So the idea is I need to spend like $1 million to buy the name is different than I'm willing to pay like $10 for the auction fee to participate, right? But what I'm trying to say is that when you're doing an auction, the amount, if you just do that, there's no deposit, then what I'm imagining is that you're not giving the name to the person who is willing to pay the most for the name. You're willing to give the name to the person who is willing to give more to the auction house, right?
What's the difference?
I think well, probably at first the values will be different.
Well, what is the difference between being prepared to pay the most and being prepared to give the most to the auction house?
It doesn't matter who you're paying to. The auction basically will give it to the highest bidder, and the bids will actually mean that you're spending that money. So the cost of capital differences won't really factor in as much.
Yeah, I mean, the big advantage is that everyone has the same cost of cash.
Yeah.
It's a dollar for a dollar.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, can I
so
ask
you
this?
still
Yeah,
value.
that,
the more
I think
dollars
that's
you
the
have.
thing, is
Yeah,
that the money, is that you
course.
make the market less complex, which means that you don't get this weird,
Where does
like
the truth-
artificial value being, I don't know.
You even out people's costs without the secondary capital market.
Exactly.
Right. Otherwise, people, you have to.
I mean, it's fair. I think that the deposit scheme was a reasonable starting position because we didn't know what we would want to do with funds in the future. We needed to do some sort of cost to make people select the names that were able to vote.
Right.
And earning all of that money seemed like a bad idea.
I like
But I'm not sure that burning it or the current system.
Burning it.
But I'm not sure. I don't see advantages to it in the ongoing system. If you assume for the moment that the fees go to the charity for buying all your ponies or whatever it is that you prefer.
Yeah, I think that you cannot discount the issue on where the money goes. Because the minute that the money is going somewhere, the discussion ends up, it's not anymore like, oh, we've built this system that is nice and it's for everyone to own.
That's why we burn it.
And then it becomes something, oh, you're selling it, right? It's something that someone is making money out of.
Okay, so here's,
Even if it's ponies.
it's really easy for us to point it at whatever address. We can decide right now that we are going to burn it. And if if there's a really good idea between now and then, and there's a level of broad agreement by the people here, like, we can look into doing that. But right now,
I think the minute you decide that you will decide later, you're basically guaranteeing that money is going to be going somewhere.
No, I think it could totally be burned. It's still in that.
I'm good
He said
with
if
the
everyone
default.
agrees.
I'm good with the default being that it gets burned, and we can set a
I think
super
that
majority of people that are here that need to.
if you change where it goes and changes people's behavior, it's gonna change the decision-making model. And like personally, like, I'm not comfortable bidding on a name, knowing that it's going to multi-sig, where there's no promises in terms of what it's gonna be used for.
I kind of agree.
I don't think
Okay,
most
so you
people know they're burning their money. I don't think that most
That's
people
valid
using
point.
ENS know that they're burning anything. I think they know they're paying buyers fees and like that.
Does it change it at all if that is very clearly owned by a
No.
real organization with a
It
charter?
doesn't change it at all until,
That's fine.
Yeah.
Hang on,
until I know what it's gonna be used for.
Right,
So
but that's
for
the charter.
example, right, okay, well then maybe the answer is yes, but like, for example, if you said that was going to the blind ponies, right? Then I would be able to make a decision on whether or not I think the blind ponies deserve the extra
Ponies
fees
don't
from
need
the
a
fee.
So
But that's the thing, is like, that's the intent.
I get it, and I respect
Yeah.
that, that's fine.
And I think that no matter what you do with the money, there's always gonna be people that are like for the ponies and against the ponies, no matter what.
Yeah.
So,
Someone's gonna hate the answer we give them.
right, so
Exactly.
the closest you could get to, like a consensus style agreement where like the money goes somewhere and then that money goes somewhere else and everyone is in agreement is like, basically if you had you basically let everyone choose like where it went and like it didn't go just to the ponies, but it went to like, you know, one ETH went to this bug bounty, and one ETH went to Taylor, and one ETH went to Nick, and one ETH went to the ponies, and
It
like.
already goes to themselves.
Okay, but here's something. I would think this would be a good idea if we had a system where we knew that the ENS system itself needed the money, right? If
Yes.
suddenly we know
That's
that
another.
we have this system where maybe for like insurance reasons or maybe for mining incentives or maybe for dispute resolution, right? If you create a system, if you create the whole system and say, look, this is going for the dispute resolution system. It's going for
I think
to
that's
refund people
reasonable.
who get
I
fucked
think,
up.
I think that's reasonable.
And also create thousands of nerds trying to put these lists together.
I mean, that's what
What does it
that's
create
what the
then?
charter of the
Gives them
hydro
jobs.
Well,
corporation.
It certainly feels like it
So
creates.
yeah, I mean, but
Everyone
the
else
thing is,
is
like, I
experiments,
think that
but
and I will not speak for like all of Reddit and stuff, but I do think that it's more reasonable to like let people know that the ENS is trying to be like, you know, self-sustaining and that it has real costs and that these fees, rather than being burned, should go to those costs. And like we agree what happens to access, you know, funds. We have this charter and stuff, like we have a better chance of like not having like the world like try to blow us up for like the choices that we make.
And you do a Twitter poll that's like, do
Oh my
you prefer
God.
burning? Do you prefer sending to us? Or did you not have any fuck idea that we prefer your money? Like that's.
Alright, I'll do Twitter poll.
Incentive to actually attack the network and make sure actions don't finalize because you get money. Right, as a foundation, so you need to address that somehow.
Well, that's the point of the foundation, right?
I already
Foundation
suggested
does
that even if the foundation gets fees, it shouldn't get unrevealed bids for exactly that reason.
Yeah.
I think those should always be bid.
Right,
Yeah.
At least they can be determined to use it without screwing things.
I think what I'm saying is that I wouldn't like to go to foundation with a charter that we will create something later, but I would like to have like create that thing where the money goes to. And then everyone sees, oh, okay, the money is going here, and we know.
I don't know, but if we don't have a charter or a purpose, then that.
Yeah,
That's what
I
Taylor
would.
was saying as well, write the charter first and then
Yeah.
propose in.
You have to tell people where the money's going and what it's going to be used
Yeah.
for. If you leave it open, like literally, like I'll shit on you. Like I'll go on Reddit and I'll yell because they'll be like, we're like, that's not acceptable. It's not acceptable for a centralized or decentralized organization to be like, hey, we're going to make this change right now from being burned to putting it in our pockets, but we don't, and we're going to figure it out later what we're going to do with it.
I do not want to be the target of the table.
You would never buy tokens that the company would immediately then dump all of the value onto the market. That would never happen.
I mean, this is the thing. It's like, okay, yes, your average user probably doesn't know that things are being burned. Yes, that doesn't affect the game theory for those people that don't understand how the system works. And yes, that doesn't affect people who literally are just trying to get rich off these fucking tokens, right? But what it does affect is like, I don't know the people that I actually care about their opinions. Like, I care about the people that are building this network. I care about my opinion. I care about the people that like do know that the fees are being burned versus not burned. Like, those are all people that like I think that we should incentivize to stay opinionated and stay in this ecosystem because it makes everything better. Like, I would say that the people that don't know that it's being burned, taking advantage of them because of their ignorance is like not an Ethereum that I would like to like move towards.
Very much. Hold on. This is totally a thing that can be made completely explicitly opt-in.
Right, and that would be fine.
And in that model, as long as none of the current tools left on their own would ever put a single way towards this thing, but an interface that's been upgraded to can let you choose which place you want your money to go to, if you want your money to go.
But you're saying that one of those places would be like a multisig, which has a charter to build something later.
And if people chose to put an address in there, then they could start putting money towards whatever it was. We don't even have to, like, it's their choice.
Yeah. Well, I just themselves and they're not really paying.
Who cares? I think if it's themselves.
I do. Yeah, then they don't cost to register names.
Yeah.
No, but you don't have to let them give all of it. But I guess
Maybe you use the second bidder's address.
Just
The second highest bidder's address.
Wait, I have a proposal.
Okay.
How about this? How about we schedule an AIP or whatever we want to do to figure out what that money would be used for, and then once we decide what it would be used for and see how other people react to that, then we decide that we cannot burn the money or we still have to burn the money. Like, instead of talking about like deciding that later, like why don't we just decide that now and then decide whether or not we're gonna burn it?
People are gonna hate that.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious that people are
Yeah, you're gonna have to do more. You're gonna have to do a lot of planning. If you just like put an heap out, you're gonna get trolled like crazy.
Oh no, I mean, okay, fine. Okay, so right now the plan is to stop burning the money and then decide what we're gonna do.
No, that's never been the plan. That was something somebody suggested, but I
Okay,
think
so
most
what's
people
the
here
plan
think
right
that's no
now?
longer.
No, look, we don't have the option to not burn the money now. We only have the option of what happens on the next registry.
So I have a suggestion.
Oh, okay.
What if, when people bid, we put their money in an account, and then later when we transition to the permanent registrar, they can either agree with what's done with the money, or they can take it out. And we already built that.
That's what we did. Yeah. Furthermore, I think that we've come up with a good mechanic for, like, okay, maybe we have some fees, they need to go somewhere. We can leave that as a pointer, and like as we come up with things that we might need to use money for, whether it's miners fees, whether it's incentive to free up accounts, whatever. Maybe we'll come up with some good sources, and then you have a full network, right? But right now, until we have good sources, let's just leave it as a pointer. Maybe it's a black hole.
But I think there's definitely some extent to which we want to say that will be spent to the public good or for the public good, not for our individual enrichment or
We can have a mini chartered pointer.
There's some kind of
like,
we make agree that this isn't just compensation for us, and if it is compensation for us, then it has to be reasonably auditable invoices to some entity.
It's a lot more complicated than that. You know what? So because let's suppose we go into rent model, right? So every single business in Ethereum has an incentive to, if their business is making a profit, they want to keep the rent, right? That means that, let's say that there's a huge new Silk Road, and then that suddenly becomes 20% of all ENS names or some variation of a dark market. That means that whoever is on that multi-sig or whoever is on that foundation is literally making money out of drug money, out of profit money.
Yeah.
Would you like to be one of those people?
Well, hang on.
I think that
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Do you hold the owners of the .org registry responsible for the registration fees for the Pirate Bay.org?
Yeah, so I don't feel like I would feel responsible for that at all. Right?
Well, they are.
Every single mission in your own registration.
I do say that registrar is literally profitable solely because of the physical website they have, and stuff and keyboard and I don't know how many legit domains are on that registrar, but I would never see it. I've never Googled any name ever. That was an innocent domain, and it says registrar. It's only scams and phishing and terrible fucking things. So I do have no respect for them, and I think they're phishing.
Sure, and the moment that they are that, the moment that they have that, there's a good reason that you can say, okay, so there you should start policing that, right? You should start taking those domains out because you make money out of them.
So far as they have the ability to do that in the system.
Yeah, that's right. And that's totally yeah.
So that's another reason that I don't think that the discussion should be, we have this pile of money, what we can do. Instead it should be, what money, where does we need money and where that money can come from, and it can probably come from that pile of money.
Sure, but this isn't a case against taking the money really in some way, because at the end of the day, we're facilitating that activity with ENS, whether or not we're taking the money. So
yeah, but
so
there's a
worse.
difference between building something that happens to be used by someone bad and literally profiting from their evil deeds.
Yeah, many
but
points here.
Basically, there's still gonna be all the pressure to.
There's still gonna be that pressure, but I would say that the latter is probably jurisdiction and legal wise probably a lot.
Just because you're using that money doesn't mean you're profiting from it in an immoral way. For example, if you're using it for dispute resolution, you're basically getting malicious actors to pay for their own moderation.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So,
but if we're paying all of us salary.
Exactly. That's
it's basically the money you charge them more than a registration fee or this dispute registration, then you are literally profiting off of dirty money.
Sure. So you can opt out of your. Are we proposing everyone gets a salary? Oh.
I was just throwing
I just
my on the table. I'm here, I don't know, my time's valuable.
Moderating the foundation.
Just the fact that we have this discussion shows how crazy the system is, in which we build a system that just makes a fuck ton of money, and how many other organizations come together? Like how
do we keep
how not
burning
to
this
spend
money?
How do we stop from burning this money? How can we not collect any customer data? How do we get rid of all of our power?
Blockchain line, you can buy a gun.
One thing about deposits, we thought about, one argument in favor of getting the deposits back to the owners is that once Ethereum, somewhere far in the future, rises to a price much higher than it is now, then you might end up with names which have such a huge amount of deposit in it that they are, well, practically unsaleable because someone has to pay at least $1 billion to someone to get their name.
Yeah. So I think if there's a deposit, there's definitely you'll be able to get it back. But if that probably might be burned while you're paying rent. But ideally, if the price either went up, the cost of that should go down. And basically, it has to do with the algorithm that we use for targeting fees, right? And when I was talking earlier, I actually realized that it's a little bit with the 20% dark markets example. It might actually be the case that like 1% of names at some point ends up being forcing too many useful registrations off the network.
Well, then that's not just.
Yeah, but the question is like how you do that.
I was actually thinking about it, and we should stop tossing around the term 2%. Because 2% on registration per year would be insane.
Actually shouting something by mentioning it.
So you refer 2 to 1?
No, it's got to be a really small percentage.
I think you'd be surprised.
Yeah, so I guess you have on the period also, right?
It's not
1% per year versus 1% per month is a big difference.
Sometimes.
It's any loan shark will tell you.
So we're going in concert. So well, it depends on what that cost of deregistration.
So we're more or less running out of
You can balance how fast the rate goes up.
Yes.
I just think the optics of it are just like really odd for starters.
If you can suggest the alternate feedback.
I'm like not worried about it.
No, but in the legacy system, because you have to pay renewal fees.
What do you see?
Well, you have like a predictable renewal thing, but you don't target deregistration.
Right, how do you make that good?
Well, they're the same until extended.
But you can't in either, right? You can't do that in either.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do the same in dollars, but in Ether, you can't really do it.
Oh, you create a token, I said that.
Yeah, but what do you do? You create a dollar back token that's like backed by like some central party that like the ENS.
Right, like that's just all the same.
I guess I'm just saying, stable tokens you're saying that the deregistration level is really way.
I mean, literally, I think we probably have to do like, oh, and governance, of course, like naturally.
Because it's
So maybe the line of governance.
to be stable, it has to have some form of feedback cycle.
Sorry, now I get it.
We got this.
All right,
Oh, and let's keep bringing the money, even though we're just always.
Yeah, because you know.
we're out of time. We now have 4 minutes to discuss Ethereum's ENS scaling.
Okay, well, so what events need to be ordered, right?
Yeah,
there's a few clear events that do need to be ordered, right? Whether reveals or bids come in before certain timeouts. Like that, there needs to be consensus on that, right? And that means that like the auction probably needs to be already named, really needs to be on the same shard. Like probably not gonna be talking about multi-shard auctions. Like you accept that outright. So so auctions are sequential, right? Individually sequential, but they can be run concurrently because they're on different names. Unless maybe you have, I think that's true, right? That's definitely true always. Yes, I think so. And so after you win an auction, you have a bunch of things that you can do with that name. And I would presume that those need to be, any changes to the name need to be applied sequentially.
Yes.
Okay, so let's assume that operations on the same name are sequential, right?
That's not necessarily true. There's only 2 things you can do with the name. 3 things, sorry. You can change who owns it, you can change what the result of the contract is, and you can add something names.
Okay.
Ordering matters.
Ordering matters for all of those. All of those.
You can't create subdomains if you don't own it, and you can't.
No. You can't. If you have two change the owner transactions, you need to process one of them first.
Yeah.
Or to change the registrar is actually
Setting subnodes are
yeah,
dependent on
exactly,
that,
yeah. So you need to order them within each other, but not between each other. Oh, like even between each other, but except for the owner, right? So for the owner needs to be ordered with all the other ones.
Yeah.
But not, but say like changing the owner doesn't need to be ordered with changing the registrar. So like if you change the registrar, resolver, right?
There's nothing there that prevents you from just putting each name on its own chart.
Let's just assume that each name is processed sequentially for simplicity. So every operation on each name is processed sequentially. Okay, great. So then we have like everything for each name sequentially for everything that has to do with each name. Great. And then so then the next question is, okay, how do we split up this namespace across different shards and load balance? So one idea is if we have n shards, well, we kind of like hash mod n, or like do some operation in mod n in order to stick names on different shards. You look at the name, and you do this operation and see what shard it's on. But if n increases or changes over time, that's going to be a fine. But you're gonna have to like learn about the shard count, and then figure out where the name is stored. The other question is actually about how will the contract. This is actually kind of related to sharding, right? Will you have to redeploy, or how does it actually move to migrate names, right? Because what's going to end up having is, sorry, whoa, I screwed up. You can't just figure out from the hash of the name with the mod which bucket it goes in because of load balancing, right? We need to keep a map that says on which shards which names are on.
So you can kind of do
distributed
things like DHTs.
Yeah, you don't even need a TC.
The DHT structure, which is every shard has a random ID, and the IDs that are closest to that, one that's close to that.
Yeah, so you got a new shard in between two, and then you migrate it.
So here's an idea.
But now you design a shard.
So here's you hash the name, and then with like I don't know. And then you like mod number of shards to figure out on which shard the location of that name is stored, right? You figure out where that name is stored, and like so you might go to shard 2 to find out that the resolver of this name is on shard 4. Then I'll go to shard 4 to do that, right? Because that way that name can move and to do load balancing.
So if we assume for a moment that any sharding solution you come up with has some way of balancing contracts across shards.
So that's actually not something I'm happy to assume because like I'm the only guy who loves load balancing shards, like so far. I mean,
okay, some way to map from a contract address to which shard it's on.
That's yeah. So like at the moment in all the solutions we look at, you just like look at the name and figure that out deterministically from the name of the contract.
Right. You mean the address? Yeah. So under that assumption, all you need is some way to go from a name hash to the address of the contract. And then you can look up where that contract is on the shard.
But how do you know that contract will be able to resolve your name?
So Vitalik came up with this the other day when we were discussing stuff, which is with Metropolis Part 2, Constantinople, the address of a generated contract will depend on the bytecode of the contract and the address that is creating it. If we have a standard contract bytecode for ENS resolver node or resolver contract, and then you append the name hash that it's for, then you can now deterministically figure out what the address of that contract will be if it exists.
Wait, sorry, hold on. What's the contract address determined right now? None.
Now it's
unsender.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what's it going to be later?
It will be the hash of the bytecode and the sender.
Instead of the
Probably also non.
No.
So what if you deploy the same contract twice? They can't.
Yeah.
It will fail the second time if the first contract still exists.
So you have
Oh,
to
so
like
then it'll just
rotate.
it'll have a rotating thing. It's almost like a nonce per
Okay,
possible
wait,
address.
but so in that case, like when we're talking about deploying the same contract for ENS,
You cycle a byte that you never use somewhere.
No. You append the name hash of the hash of the subdomain you're creating to the bytecode as a constructor parameter, and that gives it its own address, which means that if you know the address of the
so then you can
ENS
determine
root,
this if we do everything just from the data hash.
Right. So basically, you figure out the name of the contract that should be holding that thing.
Because it's all deterministic, based on
But it
information,
might
yeah.
not actually be holding it because any of these things can become overfull.
But I thought our premise here was that you have a way of mapping from a contract address to where you find it.
Yeah, you
You
can't.
can, but you don't know which contract address will have your name. No, you don't.
Each contract, it contains only one name.
And it's all deterministic,
Okay,
so it
yeah.
should be hypothetically where it's
Okay.
deterministically
Okay.
to be.
No, I got it. If you have a single name, a single contract per name,
Yeah.
then that will be fine.
The really cool thing about this is that these contracts can effectively be proxies for implementation. The owner determines what that implementation is, which means that suddenly, instead of ENS having a single central registry, set of registrars and set of resolvers, it just has this one contract. And lookup's the one step where you call it and it does a delegate call to the implementation or whatever, and everything can now be integrated into a single front end or a single interface.
Which would then also reduce gas costs.
But then you'd be making what, cross-shard calls from every shard to this one contract and this one shard?
I mean,
cross-shard
probably have
delegate calls?
multiple.
Well, every name will exist on one shard, yes.
But different names will exist on different shards.
Yes.
And all these delegate calls are going to which contract?
They can go to, they go to whatever contract the owner wants them to go to. And if they want to, it would be sensible for them to deploy that on the same shard if they can. As the name.
I mean, is it realistic to just say that like every shard will have one of these contracts?
Which contracts? The
Like
ones
the
that they-
one that we're doing the delegate call to? Because that's,
Yes.
that's like the part of the ENS that's like basically replicated over and over and over again right now.
Yeah.
We basically put that on chain separately functions and create.
Yeah, you can write library contracts that anyone can point to, just like they have for public
It
resolver right now.
deduplicates bytecode storage.
Yeah.
And it makes it possible to redeploy a contract, a different contract at the same address.
Right.
Constantinople does, yes.
If there is already a self-destruct mechanism built into it.
Right.
So it's not possible to just do it generically.
Or maybe one day rent.
Yeah, right? That just
If-
like,
That almost sounds like.
say it again, say it again.
It's upgradable contracts. You can replace what's there by self-destructing and redeploying.
Right, because
Same address.
since the address.
Which also
provided
is
by
scary.
the bytecode in the sender, that means that if you self-destruct the contract, it's no longer there, so you can upload the same.
It's not the same thing as it was before, but it's the same address.
But it depends on the bytecode of the contract, then you cannot change the contract.
You can't
only
change- you can't-
read
You
Right,
can,
right, right.
yes.
So it's not
You can
upgradable.
write a contract that just
You can
goes on
initialize
the
it.
bytecode
You
from
can
somewhere
purge the
else.
state, so any local variables in the contract,
They
you
can
can purge and reset.
Sorry, I
So
think-
if you had a full registrar with all the names and you didn't like how it was, you can pull it, redeploy it. So it sounds a little
What's the
safer.
advantage?
What would that say? Well, I don't know, but, you know, it has
Wait,
the extent of
wait,
whoever hypothetically did.
Wait, wait.
I was wrong when I said that you
Reinitialize
could
the
change it, but you can manage
You know, I think the reason why this happened is.
No, you
because
can
there were
change
sequence
it.
numbers.
You can, all you need is your constructor code, is call this other contract and get back some
Oh, sorry,
bytecode.
you can because you can deploy a clever contract.
Yes.
That its bytecode won't change, but it
Its
always.
constructor
delegates
bytecode
to
won't
something
change. No,
else.
its constructor bytecode won't
yes.
change, but its final bytecode can.
Yes.
And this
Dependent
is,
on external variables.
this is in fact one of the reasons that,
This is
Yeah.
It could just be appointed to something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can have.
this is one of the reasons that, that Metropolis was split into two,
Yeah, that
because
makes
this
a lot of
was, the
sense.
consequences of this are enormous, they're
Okay.
huge.
Oh,
Yes.
Wait, I have a question though.
Maybe.
Wouldn't, like, aren't we basically like creating a system where like we're gonna have a lot of these like fake empty contracts that are just eating up space, like,
No, it also has dedupes.
It dedupes.
Yeah.
so in the long run, we're saving memory over it.
We only ever write this bytecode for any contract once.
We already do that, to be clear.
Right, okay, yeah, alright.
And if we want to do sequence number abstraction, gotta get rid, we want to get rid of sequence numbers. Sorry,
Nonsense.
nonsense.
Which is not what
Which should have been
nonsense
called sequence
is. Yeah,
numbers all along.
I agree.
If we get rid of the sequence numbers,
Uh-huh.
then we're not able to use them to determine addresses for contracts.
Why are we getting rid of nonsense?
Because we want to count
Oh,
abstraction.
for abstraction, okay, got it. But then, so what about double spending?
You have to implement your own anti-double spend.
Yes.
So most people will initially use, most people will use a standard
I'm so
account contract that
excited
does that
now.
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Tell users to implement their own.
Yeah,
their own
okay, so my
security
equivalent, like 6.0 will just basically be like, hey guys, you're gonna have an account and like basically, you can double spend unless you like write something right here that like says that you don't. And like Ethereum totally, we're just going to the moon, right?
It's not just double spending, it's replay attacks though, right?
What?
Yeah, it's replay attack, not double spend.
Right.
Well,
It's
both.
No.
Well, the nuance is, I mean,
Without double spending, without replay text.
Replay attack is a type of.
It's just that you can submit 2 transactions.
No,
and not-
replay is not a double spend.
okay, so double spending works by
I think I would
basically
do that
submitting 2 transactions at approximately
Oh,
the same time and one with veracity. And expecting the one to go through and like get like in the pending state faster.
Yeah, sure.
I guess, but I
That's
mean,
zero
we
cost, you're
reduce
trying to get
blocks.
zero cost double spend.
If we reduce, I mean, it's really easy to double spend on Bitcoin, by the way, like really easy.
Well, on
like-
zero cost.
But, yeah, well, yeah, I mean, that's, it's assuming that like, you know, the person on the other end is like sees it and it's like, okay, cool. And then like goes and does something and then you basically rebug it or replace it or whatever you want.
Before he's on.
Okay, but if the block times are fast enough, then it's really hard, but then you just erase.
Yeah, so as long as soon as it gets in the box, like the first one that gets in the box wins, and like that's kind of like the story for the double spending. But
I will say that like trying to double spend successfully like is super fun and like fun.
that's fine, yeah, but I'm saying this is about replay attacks, non-double spend. Blockchain solves the replay, the double spending. The replay attack issues that you give me $10 once, and I like cash it out 20 times. I'm not double spending you.
You just submit
You
the
know,
same
you're
transaction
spending to
over
me.
and over.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
What is the, what is
And cost sharp.
Yeah.
What is the gas cost of registering the name?
I don't get any of
Around
this.
about 150, well, no, it depends which transaction you're talking about.
I really like.
It depends on which transaction you're talking about. The different parts of the registration vary from about 80,000 to about 200,000 gas. So we're very, very nearly out of time. One thing I would love to cram in before the end is to go around the room and have people briefly say if they have an idea that they want to build onto a VNS, if they have a cool idea for the future of VNS that we haven't covered, just briefly tell us what it is. Sorry?
So I have this fun idea, and I like, this is one of the things that's a really useless idea.
No, it's
I
so
like
good.
to keep stuff fun, and so I have the TLD sweetener.e. And basically, what I'm going to do is create a token that you can buy, and you will have your name sweetener.e. And basically, this token, I'm going to make a site like a front end little thing that basically, based on your amount of tokens and compared to all of the other token holders, will give you a little display of how big your wiener is. That makes sense. And honestly, I think people will use it.
Yeah, they want a bigger wiener for sure.
Or the maximum size of it, like.
So we were
The maximum size is the total supply of crypto.
We were discussing whether.
Especially in the crypto space. I think it should be normalized by a metallic. Like, he has the maximum.
The thing I like about this proposal is everybody's a wiener.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I want to build a single page app that has a small campfire on it, and every time the burn address receives. The campfire gets a little bit.
Yeah. For a while, right?
Yeah, it eventually burns back down.
So like a exponential decay type
Yeah.
thing. So half-life, you're really radioactive fuel.
It'll burn out too. It gets bigger and then burns out.
Don't let the campfire go out.
Oh yeah, so it's not necessarily to build on top, but what I realized that like I actually work in an insurance company, and I would love to do something related to blockchain, related to insurance. And then when we had a blockchain hackathon last month where Nick was a judge, there is some interesting things like, for example, Accenture was did the kind of parking insurance or something. If you send to the slightly wrong address by mistake, you pay out. Or and also there's other company, the guys who say like, oh, can we do ICO insurance or the implementation. I wasn't quite sure, but like,
Like deposit insurance for learning accident.
And I just realized like ENS, I only joined because like I know Nick and then Nick doing something, but then realized this is a whole gold mine of anything to do with cybersecurity insurance for the thing, and there are lots of potential, people who could benefit to cross promote something. And the one thing was missing is something like the ICOs. Currently, there are no standards at all. But some of the ENS contracts, something like ECPN, which provides you the list of some things about like a contract address or stuff. It helps, I think, insurers to quantify the risk of whatever things it's doing. So as long as there's enough data, as long as they can calculate the risk that they can buy the policy, I think there might be some insurer or our company could do that. So if you can think of any ideas which I could help put together and suggest to my company, I'm all here. So
yeah, I mean, insurance is gonna be so huge because it not only brings a level of safety to the end user, but it also acts like almost like a regulator for the people that are raising money or the people that are doing things, and like it forces them, it forces them to make them to do things without having like a government, like a centralized government, like force them to. You'd still opt in, but like I cannot wait for insurance. Like just insure everything, like literally, please.
I have something that could be useful for that. Would be the ability to create refundable transactions in Ethereum, right? So you have a refund in credit card. What the way credit card works is that you get your money 30 days later, and there can be a dispute process, so the credit card holds that money. We could automate that by using ENS in the sense that if I want to send money and I have an ENS name, and I want to send money to Piper, and Piper has an ENS name, the money gets, a portion of the money goes to him, and a portion of the money gets locked for 24 hours. During those 24 hours, any one of those can initiate a dispute process. And if this, we can, I don't know how the dispute process would work, but basically it would only stop being a dispute process until either both of them agreed with a dispute, or both of them could agree in a judge that would rule the dispute process would go over, right? But then what happens is that every time you can use those deposits that are locked for that particular account to refund it. So if you have a very popular account, and if the amount of money that gets locked in depends on how much refunds that account has, right? So you have a big seller and only a small amount of people dispute it, then maybe 10% gets locked in, 90% goes directly for them, just 10% gets locked in for 24 hours while it goes to refund people.
So like I think there's a popular problem on the e-commerce site, like
It is ENS related because you cannot do that with normal accounts. In order to do that, you sort of need to have one account that can have a reputation.
But you need a contract, not a name.
Well, it can be a name, and where it attaches to ENS is that I would say if 90% of those, if the refund rate is very large on a given name, I want to block it. I don't want, the reason I came into it, because I would like MIS to block any name that had a very large refund rate. So that's how I got into ENS.
Who's next?
I have ideas. I have two things. One of them is I want to do dispute resolution. And all the subjectivity, like max subjectivity, like random nerds in a big DAO deciding all the names. Like I think I do.
No, you don't.
I do.
Yeah.
This is why
The other thing I want to do is I want to make a foundation for burned ether that like tries to lobby for people's burned ether because we're going to spend it for good. So you make a mechanism and you burn ether. Consider donation to the foundation for burned ether.
So you're kind of like exact opposite of Jeff, because Jeff built something on the really burning ether.
Because I think it's actually a problem that I face. This is a problem I face in lots of mechanisms, right? Burning is a great thing. No one ever knows what to do with money. We want to find public good with it, right? Because if we finally have a public good that generates lots of cash, we don't know what to do with it. I mean, on the other hand, we have all these public goods that like, we can't solve because they cost too much cash. It's kind of a nice, natural way, right? It's like the only thing I've ever found in like individual game theory that like addresses the public good thing without like assuming that some players are big enough to benefit disproportionately from public goods.
I think a better idea would be if you made them for Ethereum dev grants. So the foundation can't actually spend the burnt money on itself.
Well,
but it can spend them on.
So but basically, you know, so far all I know is that it's going to be spent on public goods. Those dev grants are a public good. There may be others.
Like bug grants, you do public good,
Yeah.
dev grants,
Yeah.
not dev grants, just regular grants.
Recognition, recognition incentive.
Well, okay, I did this presentation in Japan about a month ago, but I don't know if people realize this or not. I'm not sure, but before ENS, all the entity of consensus was number, only number, ledger number. But with ENS, we start using text language on the blockchain. It's a very big change. And when I come to London, I saw the shelter in the dark. Well, shelter. Ghost in the Dark. Yeah, Ghost in the Dark movie twice in Japanese and English. And the Motoko 誰でしたっけね? Motoko じゃなくてthe previous cyborgs and Motoko. I saw that the cyborg before the Motoko is in the meeting like this, and each brain is collecting, right? Well, those who saw that movie remember that, but well, the currently the AI or the technology is linked between the machine and one human, and the shepherd. Ghost in the Dark is based on that kind of theory or imagination. With blockchain, our brain directly connected with, or the desire with number connected with money right now, but with text on the blockchain, our much rich imagination, rich thought can be connected directly with the brain. So, but yeah, so it's great, leap. So I'm not sure what kind of things will show up. Well, I have no idea. Okay.
First off, I want to thank Nick for inviting me out here, and to all of you for helping me get somewhat up to speed on all of this stuff. And I think I'm going to go back to the DNS world and think about proposing a new resource record to map to resources on the blockchain. And I want to look more at creating some kind of platform to ping resource records into a blockchain. So, thanks.
Big round of applause for Nick.
We may have more ideas though, yeah.
Yeah, one thing I was wondering is how much are we expecting people to do ICOs for names? They create assets, go into a contract, create assets, sell those like an ICO, which I'm sure everybody looks at. And then people own a piece of the name and get paid dividends when money comes into that address. That's fine. And that could alter the economics of games.
That would be on the, if the owner of the TLD decided that they wanted to do that. Like basically they could be like, I'm just keeping all the money. Or they could be like, yeah, you could. But you would decide that based on when you own it and decide to give away your subdomains.
Yeah, but what he's saying is that you can automate all that. You can make a contract that owns an ENS name, and then that name can ICO itself and have the shareholders decide where the money goes to and everything like that.
I
Also,
would
what's
just
the
say
insurance
don't use
policy?
the word, yeah, I wouldn't use the word dividends ever.
Yeah.
Personally, besides that,
Revenue
though,
distribution. It's not dividend, you share the revenue instead of the profit.
The word unlicensed security, I think it's.
Don't say that.
If you're giving them dividends, that's really what it is.
So I want to make it really easy for people to register subdomains, one click. A nominal amount of ether in order to discourage people just taking them all.
That'd be great.
Some level of security about what's going to happen to your domain. And ideally set the whole thing up so that the interface for users is just a big web page with a text box in the middle, you type your name, you hit the extension, you hit go, and you're done. And then an interface for people who have cool name extensions that they want to, make some money off by selling the subdomains to just enter their name and then go commit and then send it to this thing and get back a share. And if you want to go really wild, you can tokenize ownership of the domain and everybody gets a share of the profits and it's unlicensed.
And you're popping yourself.
and you just eliminated everyone in the US.
And hopefully your TLD is not your personal name.
That's it, yeah. What do you have to call them to tokens or?
You have to.
Valueless
Okay,
tokens.
so the main thing is like don't ever have something pay out on a ongoing basis. Like anytime something pays out, whether you call it a dividend or revenue sharing or whatever, like that becomes a security very quickly. So you just don't talk about that at all.
Don't talk about anything that might make people money.
If you
Especially
abandon,
on live on the internet.
if you abandon the top level domain, but you buy it forever, so okay, so you buy the domain forever, and the person who owns that initially, it's like this contract is now to anyone that buys it is gonna give it to everybody equally, and then they leave.
Right, that's what the DAO kind of tried to do, was be this autonomous thing, right? This autonomous thing that ran on itself and nobody was in control of it. But it turned out that it did there were still people that were responsible.
I want to see if there's any other ideas.
Yeah, I'll just do one of those pie in the sky ones. I want to see EPM go even further and just be trustworthy distribution of software in general. We don't, it could be baked into hardware at some point. You could have if you had a Ethereum client or whatever, you can just download Ubuntu.eth or something and maybe get going.
Yes.
I have a very quick one. I would like to, based on this discussion here, I'm reconsidering I'd like to go to the registrar app and add there an easy, instant buy button for own domains, where owners could set the price for their domains and anyone could just click there and would
Do you want to have a secondary market?
but there are secondary markets. And maybe even include in there a referral fee. So whoever is the website who's getting that gets 1% of the sale. So if Taylor adds the same button, she gets 1%. If we add the same button, that's.
And then it would be easier not to burn any money. You could literally just be you're paying for this and you're paying us.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, who else?
I'm doing a Wolfram Alpha.
Powerful.
So Wolfram Alpha, they have this big thing called the Wolfram data repository for just stuff.
Facts.
Yeah, it's facts. And I'm like, oh, okay, wouldn't it be nice if we could oracleize all that? There's a mild concern that it does have it for people being living or dead, and so we might want to
time to live.
we might want to not include that, but I like the others.
Right, we have time for one more, so I'm now accepting bids for the opportunity. One more, anyone? Nobody over this side said very much.
Well, I wouldn't do the username thing, but.
Yeah, same thing. I kind of have one that I've been working on with Jordi from the White Hat, and it's a bit geeky. I won't go into many details. But using the reverse ENS registry to kind of solve the EIP 165. That is the Zoom introspection interface for contracts. So basically, your contract or your address would register itself in the resolve in the reverse registrar, and then kind of have token interface dot your address dot reverse dot ATTR, and then say what address knows how to implement that interface for you. So imagine you're multi-sig, but you want to be able to receive ERC223 tokens. So you could say, okay, then I'm going to receive this kind of tokens in this other address. You're the only one that can do that. It's kind of also an upgrade mechanism for contracts and extendability. it has a lot of open challenges. It's EIP 672.
Memorize that. Right, well, that time has come. A few closing remarks. Please submit and vote on the proposals at bit.ly/ENS Lunio. Actually, sorry. bit.ly/ENS-decisions. I forgot to reload the page. And I'd really like to have some concrete statements we can make about what all or most of us agree on. So if you see something there that you think, if you don't see something there that you do think we came to consensus on, please add it, and please state if you agree on them or not. If you're going to write a blog post or a summary or anything, please email it to me so I can include it in any summary post I write about the workshop. I'm going to be editing and uploading the videos too. I'm going to be in Canada for the next 10 days, so I may be delayed a little. If you're interested in joining the DNS on ENS working group, again, please email me. And finally, not welcome. Finally, I want to thank again everybody who made this possible. Our sponsors, Status, Bancor, Aragon, Crypto Compare, and King's College, who gave us this venue. And most importantly, all of you guys for turning up and making this a really excellent workshop, I think. So thank you very much. Also, please take food with you. And that's it. Thank you.
So excited.
And I have a very good friend from there, and I'm going to visit him and his kids for the first time.